Awesome. So welcome everybody. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Lisa Garrow and I am the founder of Candy Event Consulting. And I have been planning and promoting events. I was just talking to somebody, actually that would have been Jacob, just the other day about my family lineage and how I grew up planning and promoting events. It was just part of my world. My parents were very involved in community work, and I was at the beginning sharpening the pencils and making sure all the books were in the rows, and getting food on tables and anything you can imagine around events. That's what I grew up in. And one of the biggest things that my parents taught me in my growing up was that it was all about the connections. It was all about creating not just connections with your guests that are coming to the events or to the workshops or to the talks that were happening in the past, but really, how are you connecting with others around you? How are you finding synergies? How are you activating partnerships? And the idea of activating partnerships for me has been such a rich conversation and such a rich background for me, because the idea of having a partner, and many of you are familiar with partnership and sponsorship packages for events, but this idea of actually getting partners activated. What would that mean for you guys as far as moving from a partnership that maybe somebody's sponsoring the event to actually activating and making it an active partnership? Any thoughts around that? Feel free to unmute if you'd like, or throw it in the chat. It's okay. I think a lot of people, when we talk about sponsorships, are any of you familiar with the gold, silver, bronze? I'm sure, you know, if I could see all your hands, you're probably all familiar with that or have received that yourself. The idea of moving into an activated partnership, one that is actually energizing. This idea, thank you so much guys for throwing it into the chat. Intentional, regular connection, thank you. Creating value for your partners. Yeah, and I would actually put that even a little bit farther. Where are your partners actually able to feed in value? Sometimes we come to partnerships and we're a little bit apologetic. I'm not sure if you guys ever have felt that way, but you've got some kind of an event, you've got some kind of a campaign or promotion that you're working on, but you're almost coming to them sort of hat in hand and saying, what can you offer to this particular event? What can you offer to our organization? We're working really hard over here. We've put this package together. We need X amount of dollars, or we need certain maybe goods or services. Can you put something into the pot? And that's how we sometimes approach our partnership conversations. We're like, we already have this little ball of something we're working on, and we want you to put something into the pot. If you were in a friendship, let's say, or if you were dating somebody and you had your little ball of personality and you showed up for coffee with somebody and you're like, this is who I am, and what do you want to offer? Well, how would that go over in that sort of environment? I think for most of us, we would feel pretty put off, right? Because we're also coming to the table with our own little bundle of personality and our own joys and our own hobbies and the things that we love and what we think we can add to any environment. So this idea of coming sort of with our already made package, with our already made agenda for how we would like that person or that company or that organization to partner with us, it can be a little off-putting. Now, because you're doing amazing work, and I'm sure many of you are, because you're doing amazing work, people are very kind to the conversation. People might not say, oh, you know, that really feels like, you know, either I choose it or I don't, right? Either I choose your little bundle of goodness or I don't. And the idea of actually putting forward something that's already developed, already crafted in a way that there's no wiggle room, there's no way for them to add to it, it really allows, or it doesn't allow them to put their own personality, their own excitement, their own resources, the people they know, all that other good stuff that can be part of the partnership. So give me a thumbs up or a wave if you would love that kind of partnership where you're actually starting to create that bundle of goodness together. Yeah, that's where it gets really exciting. And that's where if you are truly in a relationship, sort of coming back to the dating relationship, if you're in a relationship with somebody, it's that back and forth where somebody says, you know what, I love hiking, let's go hiking. And then maybe you love to go for East Indian food, which my girls and myself, we love to just find the best restaurants. They would throw that into the pot. We would build a relationship together that we both love. Makes sense, right? Like that's not rocket science. It makes sense. But it's amazing how many of us approach partnerships in a way that sometimes it actually looks a little like we're not just desperate. It's not necessarily about that, but we've already done the work. So why would we need them besides their money, besides maybe their venue, or besides maybe they could bring some money or some food to the table, that kind of thing. In the chat, I just want to add a couple of things from the chat. Finding what you're each good at and leveraging those strengths is a really great point around creating active partnerships. Partnership is an assurance that we have a common interest or appreciation of each other. Perfect. I love that. And I love the word trust, because doesn't that offer trust? If you're pulling something to the table, but you're saying, but it's still kind of vulnerable. It's still not quite done, or it hasn't been cooked yet, or it's not in a place where I feel like it's totally ready for all of the public. But this idea of trust, that's a beautiful comment. And then we've got finding out what's important to people and their pain points and seeing if and how you can help them. When you help people get what they want, they may eventually help you get what you want. And I would add to that, thanks for the comment, I would add to that, you might actually start to want and create something new, because we are not necessarily two rocks that kind of find their way together. And now we're just sitting together, you know, rocks by a stream, having a great time. We might have to mold and change and come into a space where we're actually creating something brand new, or something that might look unfamiliar to us. So this, I totally agree. We have to know ourselves. We have to know what we can offer. We have to know what we're bringing to the table, but having the willingness to kind of stir that pot and see what can be baked from that. I'm not a baker. I don't cook very well. But, you know, as far as the analogy, this idea of putting things in a pot together and coming out with something that is really unique, different, energizing together. Sounds like marriage, lol. Thank you. Totally get it. And then we've got here, it's good to let yourself be vulnerable and allow for free thinking. It's a two-way street. Beautiful. Yeah, fantastic comments in the chat. Thank you so much, guys, for being part of that. So what I'm going to show you right now is just share the screen for our booklet for today and just kind of give you a heads up on where we're going. Can you all see the screen okay? Just if I could just get a thumbs up or two. Perfect. So in this booklet, what we're talking about today is activating partnerships. So that's very much what we were just talking about. This idea of what does it mean to create partnerships that energize your event planning, increase your attendance, and create cool opportunities long after the event date. So what does it mean when you start doing that? It means you're not alone in creating success. Give me a wave. Okay, I'm a Lone Ranger. I have to learn not to be. I'm trying not, this has been a lifelong journey for me to open the door to others. But what I have found, and even a couple of you on the call, I have found when we come together and we are actually working towards success together, that turns the game completely upside down and makes it so much fun to start brainstorming around what's possible. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like there's definitely this space that sometimes yes, we can move fast alone. Yes, we can make a lot of great decisions with a committee of one. But if we are bringing others into that creation, into that, the work of actually, what does success mean? Not being alone actually gives us access to even more and energizes us in the process. The second one there, it means that we have learned to communicate our purpose. Any thoughts about what I mean around that? if you have people wanting to create, actually approaching you to create a cool partnership, this idea of communicating your purpose well. So it means that who I'm talking to, who I've put all my sort of effort in connecting with, if they're responding similar to someone responding to, would you go on a date with me? I have communicated my purpose in a way that they're responding back in like kind. Does that make sense? So it's a sign to me that I've hit it, that I've said something that's resonated, that I've approached this relationship in a way that is open and honest. And I think the word trust was there. I've communicated my purpose. And if my purpose is for true connection, they might have picked that up and now they're ready to play. It means that I have learned how to do that well. And then the third one here is it means that I have embraced expanded opportunities. So again, how are we sort of presenting ourselves so that we actually look like we're ready to play? Sometimes we look like it's a closed community, it's just us, we're having a good time over here. And I've seen a lot of boards or maybe even committees like that, where they're very insulated in how they're approaching and who they talk to, and sometimes it's who you know. But this idea of really, if someone approaches you and they want to create some kind of cool new something for your event or for your events that are happening in your cycle, there's probably a feeling that you are open to more. And how many of us would love someone to approach us and say, I saw what you were doing. And I've actually made phone calls like that where I call somebody up and I'm like, I can't believe your growth in the last 6 months or the last year. I have been watching you, one company or one organization, I've been watching them for probably 10 years or longer, some of them. And I'll call them and I'll say, it has been amazing to watch your journey. And I saw this pivot you just did, and I think that we could do something together. That speaks of not only trust, but that I've done my homework and that I'm somehow invested in their success as well. And then, as you can imagine, people are far more ready to jump in and make something happen together. So in your booklet, I'll stop sharing just so that you don't have to look at these pink and brown words the whole time. But this idea of how can we activate partnerships? So in the booklet, which you guys had in the chat box, and it will be on the recording underneath in the description, you can find the booklet there. But these 5 steps to really creating and activating fantastic partnerships that will lead you year-round into great relationships year-round. So I'm going to just stop sharing there. Any comments or anything in the chat that I've missed? We've got ask questions, be curious. We've got, oh, yeah, welcome here. Somebody saying hello. And then we've got this idea of really coming forward with the things that matter to you. Any comments that you'd like to make around sort of those first 3 connection points? And you're welcome to throw them in the chat as well. I'll just wait just another couple of seconds here. Yes, Jacob.
Hello. How to be assured that you are not alone? Well, okay, obviously, we need some assurance, just like you were saying. But different people communicate that in different ways, don't they? Somebody will say, yeah, here's a check for so and so much, and clear. But somebody else just has the twinkle in the eye and wants to talk a little more, and so on. I'm just wondering if you have a little more comment on that so that you know you're not alone. There's something happening and it feels like it's good. But some people are more verbal than others. And so could you just make a comment?
Of course. And I really appreciate that. So we all have seen people invest in different ways. Some actually want to be creative and co-create. Some are, I've actually done some galas where I've talked to sponsors in their garages as they're fixing their cars. They're like, can I just send you a check? Because I have zero time to attend a gala and to, dress up or find something to wear or whatever it was. And so I totally hear what you're saying there, Jacob. I think this idea of really, even if it's just a check, for us to know our partners so well that we actually know what matters to them. Maybe there's some kind of a family connection. Maybe like they may not want to participate sort of in creating the event, let's say, but there might be some kind of, if they've given you a check, there's some kind of an emotional investment. How many get that? That they're not going to give a check if they're, maybe they'll feel obligated, but that still is an emotional connection somehow. The idea of actually then bringing them on and not being alone, having the money in the bank is huge, because the work that you're doing, the movements you're creating, the products that you're trying to launch, all of those things need money. I would still say sometimes we get, and I don't want to say lazy sort of in the context of your context, but sometimes we get lazy in accepting the check. And then we're like, oh, that was amazing. Oh, they're such good people. Oh, I really love, Nancy or Joe or whatever. That was, they were able, they had the means and they actually did something about it. And they wrote a check so we can continue the work. My guess is that person isn't just a checkbook. My guess is that that person has a family, has other passions, has things that they're already invested in, even through work, that there can still be a conversation on where do you fit in the wider creation of something. And even if it means that they become a behind the scenes, I talk a lot about advocates and allies. Even if they have something, maybe they're a coach, maybe they are an accountant, maybe they have, whatever it is in their world that they're investing in full time, or it might be their job or other contribution. Maybe there's some kind of an ask on, maybe could I call you once every 3 months and just give you an update and have that conversation on what the progress, and maybe you'll have some feedback on that. Again, that's a way to build trust around the dollars. It's a way to expand the check to actually being a connection and not just the money. And I think our responsibility as people that are looking to partner and know what partnership can look like this session today is very much that. It's how do we actually look at this differently and start to educate and energize partnerships so that there's more of a back and forth happening. Does that kind of, just give me a wave if that kind of answers the question? Some of you on the call are master fundraisers. And I would say whether you're raising money for a business, some of you are entrepreneurs, some of you are coaches, some of you have your hands in a lot of pots where there's money exchanged. I would say even if you're a for-profit business and you want someone to buy your product, isn't that what we're trying to do, is create a long-term relationship with our clients, create a long-term relationship with our vendors, with people that are invested in the work that we have to do, but we get them well enough, even en masse, we get them as a wider group where we can start speaking really strong value and the idea that we want to collaborate and connect and do more in our partnerships. Not everyone's going to be ready for it immediately. Sometimes we have to give examples of what's happening. I currently just created, I'm doing a retreat 2022. It's a long, long time away, but I'm like, how do I get people energized right now? Some of my world, some of my partners have a lot of money. They've been doing really well this year. Some of them, not so much. But I'm like, how do I level this playing field? And my sponsorship package and my partnership opportunity is that I'm like, I don't want your pocketbook. I want your contribution, and I want your creativity, and I want you to come to the table with ideas, and I want us to work on this together. That I just designed that package just in the last couple of weeks. And it was out of this feeling that I'm like, I just want to build my community. And there will be some money attached, I'm sure. But I'm saying you're more than a pocketbook. I want you to come to the table and let's do something fun. And I tell you, after 11, well, no, it's been more than that, over a year now of COVID, with the lockdowns, the idea of people really being exhausted and not sure where to invest their time, a lot of people are looking for a creative space to explore what's new, what's different, what's happening. I don't even know how this retreat's going to go in a year from now. I'd be lying if I told you I knew. But I think that we can co-create partnerships that will lead us into the next phase of what this all looks like for events. Yeah? You guys kind of get that? Awesome. So in the chat box, we had how important is having an inventory of opportunities for your event? Could you type in the chat box, just maybe expanding a little bit more on that? I can answer from what's on the top of my head here, but this idea of an inventory of opportunities, meaning that you have some things they can hang on to. Is that what you're saying? So there might be a variety of ways that they can be involved. Yes, perfect. So yes, so if any of you are interested in taking a look at my package that I just created for my retreat, I'm happy to send that to you. It actually is on our website at CandyConsulting.ca/the-ultimate. I'll put that in the chat later maybe, but you can see that in our partnership section. But yes, so in that partnership package, I'm like, do you love to plan? Question mark. Fill in how you could support this event with your planning. Are you a promoter? Are you in PR? Fill in, how would you like to invest? What do you love to do? I put in there even opportunities for swag, but I said it in, how did I word that? Sort of the idea of giving our attendees sort of something to go home with, something tangible, something fun. What experiences can we offer the attendees? What do you want to put in the pot? It's kind of just worded that way. It's like, what do you want to do? Let's do something together. So they'll respond back to me. It is a form. They'd fill that out, and then we'd have a discussion around how does that fit and does it fit? Not every product, not every experience is going to fit with what I want to create, right? So I certainly have to have the framework there. But within that framework, there's all sorts of ways that we can play and collaborate together. Does that answer the question a bit? Perfect. So the second page that I showed you there, those 5 steps to activating partnerships, let's dive into those in the time that we've got left here. So number 1, every event plan can benefit from making partnerships a priority. This is maybe something that, of course, Lisa, every event can benefit from making partnerships a priority. The idea of partnerships, again, how do we define partnerships is part of this point, is that sometimes we have, again, put out our sponsorship package. We've sent it out by email. We've got it on our website. We passed it to somebody in the days when we could meet someone for coffee. We passed them the coffee. What am I talking about that takes this to another level? The word here is priority. So when every event plan can benefit from making partnerships a priority, we're talking about right in the mix of your planning, that you think about who is an ideal partner, who's already in your circle, who are those people that you love to spend time with. In a business sense, have you ever heard who you want to partner with? It's who you would actually want to travel and do some international travel with and actually be stuck in an airport with. Think about that for a second. Like, how many people in your life do you think I would love to travel with them? Be in my, travel yoga pants, maybe a hat the second day, maybe there's some kind of a layover where we're trying to find food to eat. There's something about that picture where if we can start to think of our partnerships that way, who do you want to go on that trip with? It will become people that you enjoy their personality. Even if we're talking organizationally, you as an organization have a personality. You as a company have a personality. You have a way of showing up. You have people that love to spend time with you, people that you want to call, people that energize you to keep going the next day. Then this idea of then actually pulling them along or inviting them along a journey with you, where you start to actually engage with them. You have some laughs about maybe what the kids did yesterday, or what kind of food you like, or some of the things, what happened on your last trip. I've traveled, more so in my 20s, but I've had enough time traveling around the world that I totally get the picture of who I don't want to be on a plane with, or be, caught over on a layover for 3 days with. I also know some of the people that I think that would be a pretty rich experience. Give me a thumbs up if any of you have sort of been, you kind of get what that looks like. And that maybe you've been there, where it's like you're in the plane with the wrong person, and now you're just tense for the next 10 hours or whatever it's going to be. We want to be in partnership with people we want to play with, right? Where we're just enjoying the conversation, we're enjoying their company. So this idea of, in your event plan, as you're pulling things together, as you're putting things in the pod and taking things out of the pod, we want to make partnerships a priority, and thinking of your partnership in the sense of, how can they be part of, maybe they're not planners, but how can they be part of actually forming what this event could be? I tell you, those types of partnerships and those partners, if someone came to me and said, Lisa, we're just planning our spring conference about, I don't know, great health for special dogs in our lives, or whatever it is. We've had 3 dogs in our house, and unfortunately they've all passed, over the last couple of years. But I love the idea of someone coming to me and saying, I know you're a dog lover. I see what you're trying to do with the community, and we're just formulating this event. We're not exactly sure how it's all going to go down, but would you like to put your conversation, maybe some resources, maybe get some other partners or references into the mix, or whatever it is, where I feel like now you're coming to me and you're kind of allowing me to be a priority in the planning stage. So that's number one. Number two, every partner can benefit from investing in events that matter to them. So the idea of someone coming to me, I actually get to benefit from showing up, from putting my best foot forward, from being seen as somebody that's not just out of the goodness of my heart, I'm going to give you some money, but where I'm coming to the table, I'm like, are you struggling with, some of the partners I've had, they're really struggling with booking all of their trade show booths, for example. I can, as somebody that's my background, I could very easily be on a call with their board or their committee, have a conversation, help them kind of get over that hump and find new ways, to open the door to new partnerships or new trade show booths, as an example. So I'm also benefiting, because then it allows me to share my expertise, and my work as an event coach or event strategist kind of comes to the forefront, so that people know what I do. Does that make sense? I wouldn't go in there trying to sell people. That wouldn't be my, if I'm truly a partner with you or with your organization, that's not my purpose. My purpose is that, let me use my purpose to benefit yours. And then that really, I have a stronger investment, and you better believe I'm going to be talking to my community about you and about my work with you. Yeah. And this can be anything. I've worked with partnerships with camps, and it was the septic tank people that we were asking for a sponsorship. And people are passionate about septic tank use. And it's really amazing to me, because they're the unseen, behind the scenes, and they're trying to make things work. But this idea of actually saying, you have something of value, could we work together? Or what have you been seeing? So often we miss the people, and we've got a photographer here that, that this idea of looking in on an event where they see your event or they see your connections from a different perspective, right? So if we were to talk to them and say, what did you see in that event? What mattered to you? It really allows them to give that feedback and invest and become an owner in what that event looks like. And we'll probably be there for all of your connecting points along the way, because events aren't just a one-time thing. They are a chance for you to have a connection point, and then another connection point, and then another one. And it truly, if these people are partners that are with you for the long haul, that becomes a great way for them to invest in different ways over time. So welcome to those of you that just popped on now. Just so you know, we are recording, and I'll be adding this to our YouTube channel, but you don't necessarily have to be seen. So you're welcome to show us your video if you'd like. And then in the chat box, I'll just add in the chat box here that there is the booklet for you guys to follow along if you like, and you won't need it for this session, but I will put it in the chat for you there as well. So we were on point number 2. We're going to go to the last 3 points here. The third point in your 5 steps to activating partnerships for your events is every event team can create ways for partners to invest more than money. So how many of you work with an event team or committee or on some kind of a planning, cohort of some kind? So some of you are on some kind of a committee. Maybe you're doing this with other business owners, and you're all kind of collaborating and making some kind of an event happen. So every event team can create ways for partners to invest more than money. So this is where you start to get creative, because sometimes you as a partner, and I'll just sort of use random names, but if Nancy, Joe, and Billy Bob, my husband teases me that I always use Billy Bob as my if these people are at the table, they're sitting in the committee, they're having this conversation about what this event could mean. What if you didn't have the conversation about dollars? What if you didn't have the conversation about where your affluent donors are? What if you didn't have the conversation about who owns the most property south of Calgary? What if you didn't have a conversation about money at all? What would that look like as a team or a committee to say, who do we want to partner with? Would that be a difficult or more difficult conversation? Some of you might be working this way already, but would it be something that it would be reasonable for you to think as a group that if we put money aside and we looked at every other characteristic of what this partnership could look like, or partnerships, because you're a committee, so you all have different circles of people you can be reaching out to, do you think that would be a more energizing conversation? Give me a wave or a thumbs up if you feel like that would be more energizing. I want to be really clear here, because it doesn't mean that there isn't money attached. If I'm saying I'm going to come and I'll plan an event for you for free, then that's my partnership. You better believe there's all sorts of expenses I'm paying for on the side, and that I'm bringing resources, and there's money exchange. So I'm not saying that there isn't, even if someone's partnering with you in a way that's more than their pocketbook, chances are pretty good that they still might put money into the pot. So it's not that we're taking money out of the equation completely. Thank you so much for adding this into the chat box here, but shared values, beliefs, passions, vision, so energizing. Like if I was in a committee where we're like, we are not going to talk about money. I have been to many event committee meetings where that list on the whiteboard is about who do we know that is rich or has all the money, or they've been investing in this whatever conference or tournament forever. And then you kind of get to the end of your list and you're like, okay, well, if these 10 people say no, what are we going to do? If we were to flip that on its head and say, we are going to look at shared values, their beliefs, their passions, how do they spend their time, their vision, some of their skills, the things that really matter to them, that wake them up in the morning and get them excited about getting moving, at 5 a.m., whatever that is. What is that for them? And having that conversation. And we have affinity first here. So thanks for that too. So this idea of the team can create ways for partners to invest more than money. We need to be thinking about it that way. And then the money comes. And if you are an entrepreneur business owner, some of you have heard this, right? lean into what you're not just good at, but where your heart's at, where you're not going to let go. You're like, you're just, you've hung on to what is the most important to you. Find ways, craft ways to get that message out, and the money will follow. There is something to be said for that, that we're not discounting the money at the table, but we have to make sure we're starting with the passion, the investment, the shared values, beliefs, passion, vision, all of that in the chat box. Thanks, guys. Number 4 is every team member can participate in activating partner relationships. And I love what we were discussing a little bit earlier, that not every partner is going to have the same kind of way to invest, or they won't all sort of, we're not sort of brushing everybody with the same brush here. People will want something different in how they're relating to you, how they're relating to your organization, how your company, is involved in their life and them and yours, that kind of thing. So this idea of every team member can participate in activating partner relationships. I was working with a board. This is actually when I first started my company in Winnipeg, 2008. And I have already been planning events for many, many, many years, like since I was, early teens. And then coming now to this place where I was working with a board, and it was a very passive board. They weren't used to investing. They weren't used to making phone calls. They had a lot of opinions. That was in abundance. But this idea of working with the board and talking to Jim and talking to Bill and talking to, Martha over here and saying, who are you? What do you love? Who do you know? Where do you go on the weekends? For them to start thinking about themselves as a team member, and they can have an active role in creating a cool partnership for an event or a campaign or whatever it is. They actually had to take a lot of time getting their head wrapped around, this isn't going to be a chore. This actually can be really energizing. And I can talk to my friends in a way that I'm not just coming again to them hat in hand and saying, could you make a donation? The personalities of the people on your event committee, your event team, can also dictate how those partnerships can happen, right? I can approach somebody in my world as an entrepreneur, as a creative event planner, in a much different way than, let's say, my husband, who is an accountant in an oil and gas company, somebody that is more linear, and his relationships are very different. He can approach somebody in a very different way. But I tell you, we wouldn't talk to the people in our worlds in a way that they would understand. Does that make sense? Am I saying that right? If I'm going into his company and pitching an event that's going to be amazing, and I'm a visionary, so I'm building out the vision for what this can look like, and I'm saying, and then we could create this, and what if we did this? It may not land in the same way as if my husband would come to them with the numbers, with sort of what he's done before, with the proof of, of what's happened. That's just how his mind works and how he speaks. He will be much more effective to be able to create that partnership than I would. And then as a team, and I'm talking sort of wider team, your committee, your board, if we say, you have a way of talking to these people, I have a way of talking to these people, someone on the call is a comedian, she would have a way of talking to partners in a different way. So we need to free up our teams to interpret and share the vision for the event in different ways, right? So, and empowering your team to do that. I might not understand, and my husband and I have been married now 8.5 years. I don't always understand why he chooses to communicate something the way he does, but you better believe he knows exactly why he's communicating the way he does. He said, good luck for me, on this call today. He's like, you're going to do great, but he doesn't actually, he wouldn't speak the way I speak to talk to you guys as a group, right? We're all going to approach this conversation differently. It doesn't mean that the event is going to feel scattered and all over the place. It means that you're going to have investment from everyone that needs to be invested, and even others that might not know much about your company or your organization, they're going to be excited about being involved. Number 5. So we're going to wrap on this one, and then I'm going to give you a challenge for your next week. Number 5, every event can be a connection point in the life of a business, organization, or a group. So if you've ever been in a strategy session with me, you have probably heard the word a connection cycle. The connection cycle that I talk about is about every single point of contact you might have with your partners, with your attendees, even with your internal team, but I call them connecting points. And these connecting points are points where you're actually showing up fully in your purpose. You're showing up fully yourself in a way that your message is clear, in a way that you are connecting really well with the people that you are already working with, their current customers, for example, or they might be future friends, future customers, potential donors for your organization. And looking, kind of taking the step back, that many of us look at an event as a one-time thing, a one-hit wonder. What's the challenge? And throw it into the chat box if you have some thoughts. What's the challenge of approaching your event as a one-hit wonder? If you've grown up in the 80s, some of you, you'll know what a one-hit wonder is. Any thoughts? What's the problem with that approach?
And a scarcity mindset.
Scarcity.
You become obligated either to a personality or a point of view. And of course, that's not particularly energizing for the whole group.
Yes, I love it. And when we, and it's amazing because sometimes we'll even hook our reputation or our sort of view to the rest of the world on one event or one way of doing an event, right? And they're not getting the whole picture, the whole story. And in relationship, we kind of do see, even relationships in our lives, we see the good, the bad, and the ugly, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And there needs to be the opportunity for partners to be part of, honestly, and I know maybe this is part of the trust we were talking about earlier, but sometimes our partners need to see the good and the bad and the ugly, and that builds more trust. The good, the bad, the ugly, and then builds more trust. And the beauty of your connection points, I bet, and I've seen this happen, you're going to hit that connection point better and better and better and better every single time you show up. It doesn't have to be the same event. It might be an internal interpretation with your internal team. It might be with your community of like-minded organizations. It might be, I know someone on the call is a collaboration expert. So this idea of maybe there's two things that looks really different, but when we put them together, it creates this really great spark. And there's something cool that can be happening here. And seasonally, how are you showing up? What makes sense seasonally for your donors or your customers? So this idea of creating these connection points, and I have been in a position where I have been asked to do something, kind of help or be a partner for an event. And literally, I will not hear from anybody for sometimes a year and a half, sometimes 2 years. And then it's like they finally woken up and they give me another call. And you know what? I do that in some cases as well. I don't want to sort of put the big heavy on today because we're just together for an hour. But this idea of where is the relationship happening? And I was joking with somebody, and completely joking, but I heard from one of the partners that I had been working with, and I hadn't heard from them for a long, long time. And I said, you know, oh, I just got the booty call. And the booty call is like, oh, they need something. They need something, and I guess I'm the person to call. I know it's ridiculous, but it put me in the defensive, right? We ended up working things out, and I was able to help them with something else. But I tell you, it took me some time to kind of get over my own, like, you know, I had to brush it off and just say, okay, they need this support, and this is the way that I can give it. So the more that we can create this, even if it was ugly, oh my, gosh, this last year has been ugly for some of us, where it's been a really tough pivot and change and trying to figure things out and where are we going next? We could consider that the ugly space, and we want to remove ourselves from partnership or communication. This is a phone, by the way, for people that are my age or, you know, whatever. So we want to communicate sort of when things are good. But when we're hurting, I'm like this personally, when we're hurting or there's a lot going on or we're overwhelmed and don't have a solution, I bet you everybody on the call is some kind of a solution finder, then we remove ourselves, right? And then we're like, oh, well, we're going to show up when things are better again, when we have everything together again, when we've got this figured out, then we're going to re-engage and show up at our best with our best foot forward. Have you ever been in that position, or am I alone? Give me a yeah if you have felt that. The new reality, and if you haven't done this in the past, or you haven't felt the openness to do this in the past, there also might be something about the partnerships you have that you're not in a space where you could fly, you know, the friendly skies with them. For those of you that are just joining, this idea of loving the people you're with so much that you could travel with them, that's kind of an analogy for really who do you want in your circle. If you are not open enough to say, this is a really tough time, and I'm not sure how I'm showing up, and I'm not sure how I'm going to craft this event or this campaign or what's next, but I'm reaching out because I really appreciate you. And I know that you're maybe challenged too, or maybe you're having a great year. How are things going for you? I'm still in the game, whatever your conversation is. I'm still in the game, trying to figure some things out. I've got these, you know, few things happening, but let's just stay in touch. How do you think that conversation would go over with people in your world, partners, potential even partners in your world? It would probably land in a way where they're like, oh, yeah, I feel it too. Or I'm so sorry you're going through that right now. Or what a challenge your team must be having through this year. Or they would be like, I have had, and I've had people say this to me, I feel guilty for saying I've had the best year in my life of my company this year. And they're feeling bad. They feel like they can't share that because everyone's hurting. But maybe there's a space in having these very real and raw conversations. We can build really strong connections, really strong partnerships that we will want to activate, that we'll want to work on something and make it work together. Yeah? I feel like I'm kind of now preaching, but you know, just I want to leave you with that, because sometimes in my own world, pulling back, hiding in my closet, under my covers, will not serve me. And I don't want to be reconnecting with people in a way where now I've got it all together, but because things will happen again. Maybe not a pandemic, but things will happen where it's just like, oh, that was a hard day, or that was a hard week, or that event, oh, everything went off the rails. We need to be in true partnership where we can build trust with each other, that back and forth, so that we can move forward and create amazing things, movements together, which is where it gets super exciting. So just a couple of comments. Totally not alone. Thank you for that. Oh, the one-hit wonder. So jumping back to the one-hit wonder. Perfectionism, putting too much pressure and expectation on one event with one group of people. Yep, love that. And then this idea of opening up and having many connection points. This eases emotional burden to the other person, not being active in the partnership and going dark. Yeah. Transparency, vulnerability is a great way to build trust and connection in any relationship. I almost feel like just and seen. Because that's it's a beautiful way. And if you want to cut and paste that and throw that onto your social media, I think more people need to hear that, because we need to be showing up with authenticity, with transparency, vulnerability, and knowing that the right people won't say that that means that we are disorganized and cannot be trusted. There might be people, especially I've been an event planner forever and ever. And this idea of event planners needing to be perfect all the time, needing to know the solution, needing to put out the fire, needing to know what's the flow, like where are we going, and we're leaders. So this idea of putting ourselves out there, maybe not being perfect, maybe not having the partnership even designed yet, this idea of actually pulling ourselves into a place where we are open and we're creating together is really important. There was just a question on transparency in the chat box. Did you want to share that or throw that into the chat?
Yeah, I'm just going to do it verbally.
Perfect.
In terms of transparency, I think one of the things that we want to be able to do or demonstrate to our partners when they engage with us is how we fulfilled our side of the relationship as well. Do you have any sort of ideas, thoughts, tips, or even document structures that you use to help demonstrate that fulfillment?
Beautiful. I absolutely love that question for a whole bunch of reasons. But isn't it true then that if we are taking their check or they become a sponsor and we have their list of gold sponsorship benefits on this side, they watch the whole event go down. And then we then come to them and say, and this was the result, X, Y, Z, whatever, whatever. It's a very cold transaction, right? And if you didn't raise the money, for example, for a fundraising event, if you didn't raise the money that you had anticipated for a bunch of reasons, maybe some of them you don't even know, and you kind of come with your tail between your legs for the report, right? Because then you have to report back and say, this is what happened, or this, and even if it's a great result, the challenge when you're talking about sort of the reporting system, I totally believe we have to be responsible to, because there are way too many events and way too many organizers that aren't responsible for the result. But what we're saying is what we're measuring is, again, more than money. So we need to create the measurement around the event in the way that we're actually saying, this is what we've created together with our team, our experts, our fundraising, development directors or whoever they are, and our partners. And this is what we've created. And we have, as a group, decided these are our measurables. This is where we want to get at the end of the event. And the beauty, and I'm sorry, I wish I had more time for this, but the beauty of that is that then you all take ownership over the reporting portion of it as well. So when you're setting your goals together, not, again, like we've talked about, not every partner is going to want to invest and be at all sorts of meetings. That's not what I'm talking about. But together we're determining what is the ROI on that event and looking at it in all sorts of ways, in relationship building. Maybe this is one of many in a series. Maybe we're looking at growth from last year. Maybe it is money that we're actually raising. Like there's a bunch of different factors that we can add. And I would love to, if anyone wants to have that conversation separately, we could dive into that. But I think we have to look at the ROI in a different way. And then our reporting becomes a lot of fun because it's one connection point in a bunch of connection points where you're showing up on purpose and you're showing up, bringing the best of what you guys have, bringing the collaborations together, creating new connection points. Because then it's not, if it's a one-hit wonder, then it's the tail between the legs. There's a lot of pain in that, if it didn't go well. If it went really well, then, we're patting ourselves on the back. Like, aren't we the best event planning team? Both of those are a problem because both of those discount the relationship you're trying to build over time, over and over and over again with your partners and donors, sponsors, clients, customers, whoever is your audience for that event. Does that sort of answer it? I know it's kind of high level, but does that kind of answer it? Okay, sounds like we need to do better at customization with our partners rather than a tiered system of sponsors. Woo! Sorry if I yelled in your ear. Yes, totally. Totally. And you better believe if I was one of those partners on this side and we kind of we knew what our ROI, what we decided together, our ROI on this particular connection point would be. I'm going to see what's happened, you know, to bring us to this result. And when we're reporting, we want to show the shiny good stuff, but we also want to show the work that has happened and the growth that has happened, and maybe even some of the new connections that have happened that will be a jumping off point to something else. Yeah? Kind of get that? Okay, I have a little story, but we don't have time for my other stories. So what I want to do is I'll leave it there. And if any of you want to have that particular conversation, I would love to chat with you about it. The work that I do is coaching and strategy for event planning teams. I guess I should give you my little commercial at the end here, but that is all I do right now, is coaching teams, coaching individuals, helping people exactly with these conversations on how then do you draft that well for your team, and how do you make sure you're looking at this as a full connection cycle, and in the context of building partnerships that will be active, energized, and exciting. The challenge I will give to you, and if you want to send this to me, I'm happy to have an hour with you and let's chat through it, but I'm just going to share my screen real quick again. So at the bottom in your booklet, I've asked you here, who in your circle would be open to the activation conversation? So I would love for you to even take 5 minutes or half an hour, whatever it would take you today, to fill in 5 different companies, people, or organizations here that you feel like would be open to being vulnerable, they're trustworthy, they're excited about what you're doing, that there's something about that relationship you have built today that you could have this conversation with them. Even show this, for those of you that showed up late, this will go up onto our YouTube channel so you can see, you can download this booklet and do that work with them if you want to. But list people in your world, because it's really important for us to be looking at when they're excited about the conversation, they're like, holy smokes, that was really easy. So it's something about putting it in action, getting that for yourself, getting the evidence that you actually can start to create activated, energetic, exciting partnerships for your business or your organization or your group. So thank you everybody for being here. Yeah, great chat. I'm at Lisa@CandyConsulting.ca if you want to just send me an email, or just through all of my social channels. Find me wherever I am if you'd like to continue the conversation. But I so appreciate your time today and the chance to go through this material with you. I'm excited about it. And for some of you on the call, I know you lead groups. If you want to do this kind of a conversation in a group setting, I'm happy to do that for internal teams, boards, committees, or you might have a membership group. I'd love to chat about what that could look like. So thank you everybody for being here, and watch for the links, and hopefully you will be planning with purpose and have an amazing, amazing week of planning this week.